Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn session. Thanks very much for coming along in your lunch hour. Today's session is a review of the Biogas Bridge Forum that we held here in Wellington last week. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jeffrey Clark, Chief Executive of GasNZ, and our other presenter today is going to be Chase Hancock, who was also there with us and one of the key organisers for the forum. There's Chase there. I thought what I'd like to do is kind of set the scene, explain what the Biogas Bridge Forum was, why we held it, and then go through what were the key elements of the program, some of the key things that we noted as we went through, and then Chase is going to give you a bit of kind of a summary of what were some of the themes and takeouts that we took from the event. But in terms of process, you've got both the raise your hand button at the top of your screen there and the Q&A. If you want to ask a question, use either one of those. We'll probably answer questions at the end, so you can either raise your hand or use the Q&A and we'll get through to them. I thought probably the easiest way to give you a feel for the Biogas Bridge was to play you just a little snippet of my welcome at the start of it. The genesis of the event was a lot of discussions we've had over the last year or so about why is it that biomethane, biogas hasn't really caught on in New Zealand. And I was having coffee with Elzbieta Buskova from EcoGas just before Christmas last year. And we said, one of the challenges is that there are so many different stakeholders involved, from the feedstock side of things, the bringing feedstocks together, the investment side, the energy side, the waste side, and they all have different interests, and it's quite hard to bring them together. So wouldn't it be great if we could just actually lock everyone in a room for a few days and get them to all see each other's perspectives? And we kind of thought, well, why don't we try that? So that was kind of the genesis of the event. So look, let's go into the introduction that I gave at the event, and then we'll kind of step through some of the key elements of the program. So I am going to endeavour to switch over to the video, and away we go. And away we go. No, sorry. There we go. Okay, sorry people, I've just been told that you are not getting the sound on that, and that is probably my fault. So we're going to try that again. Sorry for that. Technologically, I'm going to have to stop sharing, and I'm going to have to reshare that again. Apologies. So I'm going to try this one up. No, I'm going to do it again, and this time I'm going to click the. Here we go. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I'm Jeffrey Clark, Chief Executive of GasNZ, and on behalf of GasNZ and the Bioenergy Association, I am absolutely delighted to welcome you this morning to the Biogas Bridge. The Biogas Bridge is a pretty odd name for a gathering, but we chose the name very intentionally. A bridge is a way past an obstacle, a way of connecting separate parts together or transitioning from one thing to another. When you build a bridge in the right place, it's transformative. You can open up new opportunities for everyone in the region,
and you can exploit potentials that weren't there before. In so many ways, biogas and its production process, anaerobic digestion, or AD, you're going to hear that term a lot, is a bridge. It's a bridge to connect disparate problems with principled holistic solutions. It's a bridge that transitions our view of organic waste from trash to treasure and waste management from headache into a production opportunity. It's a bridge as a way to meaningfully avoid greenhouse gas emissions while in the process delivering increased domestic energy security and resilience via biogas and biomethane. And it's a bridge as a powerful way for all of us to connect our organisations with individual Kiwis and overseas consumers through the messaging that turning waste into treasure is the right thing to do. It's a story that speaks strongly to our sense of kaitiakitanga and the clean, green values that New Zealanders hold dear. And this event is also a bridge in another sense. It's a connector of people, we the people here in this room. Because New Zealand is far behind the rest of the developed world in investing in anaerobic digestion to manage organic waste and produce renewable gas energy. Why is that? Why is the EcoGas facility at Reparo the only commercial anaerobic digestion to methane plant in New Zealand? The technology is well understood, it's well tested. The benefits of anaerobic digestion are well understood. It's been described as a win-win-win-win-win, delivering improved waste management, reduction in the area of landfill we need, reduction of methane emissions from breakdown of waste, production of renewable gas energy right here in New Zealand using waste as a feedstock, reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by providing renewable gas to use instead of traditional gas sources, and production of a whole range of valuable co-products like bio-CO2, heat, and biofertilizer. So if you zoom out and look from a whole of New Zealand perspective, the case for adopting anaerobic digestion broadly is absolutely clear and convincing. But when you zoom in down to the level of an individual project and an individual investment decision, getting those across the line can be really hard. Because although anaerobic digestion generates many clear benefits, those benefits are distributed across a broad range of stakeholders. Some of the benefits accrue to individual entities, producers of organic waste, landowners, facility operators, energy businesses, or primary sector businesses. Some benefits accrue more broadly to communities or regions, city councils or regional councils. Some accrue to all New Zealanders, like energy security and waste reduction. And some are really broad, like emissions reduction, that benefit the entire planet and our children's future. And building collaborations to bring all of those disparate beneficiaries together to capture those distributed values takes hard work and leadership. So we imagined this event today and tomorrow as a bridge, bringing all the necessary players together to build more of those connections and understandings between the different stakeholders, between all of you, to help accelerate uptake. So welcome. You are the biogas bridge. Our goal is that over the next 2 days, we'll develop a shared understanding of the state of biogas and biomethane in New Zealand, a sense of its potential and how we can rapidly start to realise that potential. You will build new connections with your colleagues around this room and your future partners. And you'll see examples of how others in New Zealand and overseas have built successful business cases for biogas projects and delivered those projects successfully.
Okay, so that was the introduction and the framing that we set up for the Biogas Bridge Forum. We were successful in getting 134 people to attend, and that was across the broad range of stakeholders that we had intended. We quite intentionally wanted to get people from a whole bunch of different segments of industry and segments of the New Zealand kind of business that are relevant to biomethane. We had there a significant number of developers. We had local government. I think we had 9 or 10 councils there. Organic waste stream producers, whether they were agricultural or industrial, We had some waste management companies. We had, importantly, we had government sector people from ECA, MB, MFE, MPI, and the Climate Change Commission, along with a range of consultants and other solution providers. So I think we felt that we did a good job in getting the right people together. In framing for the event, we really wanted to have government commitment. One of the things that we've been seeking to get for a long time is to have the New Zealand government stand up and saying, we believe that biomethane is going to be part of our energy future, and to put some actions in place to demonstrate that they do support it. So we're very happy that we had Minister Watts there, the Energy Minister, welcoming everyone and opening the event. And in his opening remarks, which I've got a copy of here, I think for the first time we had a government representative saying that biogas was part of New Zealand's energy strategy. He said, I want to begin by acknowledging the critical role that biogas can play in New Zealand's energy transition. As Minister for Energy, I'm committed to ensuring that our energy system is secure, affordable, and increasingly renewable. Biogas can play a role in that vision. I'm pleased to reaffirm, I'm not sure it really was reaffirming, I think it was saying for the first time, this government's strong interest in and support for biogas. We see biogas as a strategic opportunity to strengthen energy resilience, decarbonise our gas networks, and to support regional development. As is often the case with ministerial announcements, it's a little bit hard to see what the meat on the bones is, but there were three specific things that he mentioned that the government will now do to kind of advance biogas and biomethane. The first is an amendment to the Commerce Act to make it clear that to the extent biomethane interacts with the regulated gas infrastructure in New Zealand, biomethane will be caught and will be regulated as well, so it falls within the Commerce Act scope of regulated infrastructure. Secondly, the Minister says he directed both MB from the energy side and MFE from the environment side to work together to explore options to divert, he said, biological waste, I think he means organic waste, from landfill towards energy production. And he specifically talked about supporting the circular economy. So I think that's probably a first from the Energy Minister, expressing the view that organic waste should be prioritised away from landfill to energy production. So that was helpful. And then third, he specifically announced a project that ECA has been developing in consultation with us around project mapping for the regional availability of feedstocks. So the idea is to map potential anaerobic digestion feedstocks around the country and their availability. So that was good news to hear that, and certainly gives us a lot of opportunities. It gives officials more of a license to engage with those of us who are interested in biomethane. So in terms of the program that we went through, we structured it with a scene setting at the beginning, the context internationally and domestically for biogas. And then we sort of walked through the easy wins, the brownfields opportunities for biomethane, how you could expand that up towards the kind of the 12 petajoules of biogas, and then beyond that to significant new developments. And we then looked at some of the barriers and enablers to get there. Charlotte Morton was the keynote speaker. She's the Chief Executive of the World Biogas Association, who we brought over for the event. And they have put in place recently launched a world global regulatory framework to encourage countries to adopt a similar approach for implementing biogas within the energy systems. She emphasized the circular economy benefits of biogas and just how much diverting organic waste to energy could both produce energy sources and reduce emissions. And she noted that there has been a rapid uptick in the adoption of biomethane facilities around the world. In terms of kind of her high-level recommendations, they were along the lines of adopting a national biomethane target, having in place an emissions trading scheme, which of course we do here, and financial assistance to grow the sector. And she noted that those countries that had been successful in rapidly scaling up their sectors had declared anaerobic digestion to be a priority tool for the management of waste. So that was kind of from the international side. We then had Ben Gerritsen, our chair, who's on both the boards of GasNZ and the Bioenergy Association, talk about the New Zealand context. He gave a funny analogy. He was saying, given the difficulties we've had here with natural gas supply, he thought that biomethane had presented itself as the support act for the big concert, which was natural gas, and it was like having biomethane be the support act for Oasis, but the Gallagher brothers, they had a fight, and so they weren't performing, and so suddenly biomethane had to step up, and instead of being the support act, it was increasingly going to become the main event, and people jokingly referred back to that throughout the course of the event. He noted that scale, cost, and timing were all challenges, and talk through some of those aspects. Then I guess over the course of the program, we started off with effectively a 101. What is anaerobic digestion? How does it work? So Elisabetta Busgrove-Houghton from EcoGas talked about that, gave some kind of technical basic level introductions to anaerobic digestion, the production of biomethane, and some of the challenges. And then we had Richard Bartlett talk about the economics of anaerobic digestion. And I'll just bring up one of the slides that he had there. He was really highlighting the fact that in countries around the world, a build-up of different types of support have always been in place to make sure that anaerobic digestion can grow. So in New Zealand, you can see on the very left-hand side, we have very little in the way of support, whereas other markets have the dark shaded patch there is the level of government support in the UK, the next two, the USA, the middle two, and some European ones on the right-hand side. And then the orange ones are the value that the producers receive from trading of green certificates. So you can see that in New Zealand, we have a very standalone, unsupported market, and the challenge and opportunity for us is to bring in place some of those additional mechanisms to the extent they can be available to help support the industry to grow. We then moved on to talking about projects that have been implemented. We had Michael Baker from Gemina in Australia talk about the Malabar wastewater treatment facility in Sydney, where they have basically tacked on to the end of an existing wastewater treatment plant an anaerobic digestion, or an upgrading facility to upgrade the gas there. And we then moved on to a panel discussion talking about that low-hanging fruit. There is an estimated 5 petajoules of biogas that is currently being produced in New Zealand from wastewater treatment plants and landfills and various other sources. How can we capture that? How can that be diverted to higher value use? And there was actually quite a lot of discussion as we went along around that value chain. A lot of the biogas that's being produced at the moment is being used for basic heat purposes or process purposes. How can we increase the value of biogas so that it gets used for the hard to abate sectors and so on? We had a panel discussion talking about that with Hamish Waugh and Nathan Clark from Nelson City Council and Jared Irving from LAMS Energy, and it was really interesting hearing from the Manawatu District Council and Nelson City Council's perspectives of the challenges they've faced in convincing their councils who have the ratepayers' interests at heart and don't want to see additional costs passed on, and yet trying to take advantage of the benefits that they clearly see from accelerating the adoption of anaerobic digestion within their facilities. So there's some really good discussion there. And I think for me, one of the interesting series of conversations in the breaks and during the meeting was with the people from councils. We probably had about 10 or 12 of them there, and they were really keen to know more and to know what they could do to understand better and take advantage. So one of our takeouts from the event will be to make sure we carry on those discussions with them and bring them into our work and the work that the Bioenergy Association is doing. We then moved on to some presentations about carbon, understanding carbon accounting and how the value of carbon can help be a core part of the business case for getting an anaerobic digestion to biomethane plant across the line. And one of the interesting takeouts from that was a comment made by Eleanor Grant from Becca. She was wearing her Bioenergy Association hat, noting some data they had pulled together on the transport costs of feedstocks for anaerobic digestion and the carbon value, and really making the point quite strongly that even though it can be a difficult PR story, what Reparoa is doing with collecting food waste in Auckland and transporting it to Reparoa, the carbon cost of doing that is far outweighed by the benefits of the biogas that's generated on the other side. So that was really interesting. We went on to a panel discussion after the lunch break, focused on those empowering regions through circular solutions. That was quite focused on what had been achieved at Reparoa. So really interesting discussion there about the practicalities and particularly the community benefits, how at that facility they had turners and growers benefiting from the CO2 and the heat that's produced, how the Auckland City Council had got its head around the new approach to waste management and what was involved with that. We heard from No Energy about how they had dealt with and how they regarded the energy they were taking from it, and Fonterra kind of broadly thinking about this community value. So there's some really good to understand the practicalities of getting a biomethane plant up and running. At the end of day one, there was also a presentation to Brian Cox of the Bioenergy Association. He had been awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award at the recent World Biogas Association conference in England. So then on the second day, we were thinking about increasing scale, and we had two panels on how do we increase scale, what would be required to really significantly improve the quantities of biomethane that are produced. We had Trevor Stuthridge from Cetogenics talking about their technology that they're using, Paul Bennett from Scion talking about their understanding of feedstocks and availability, Dan Noth from Ake talking about their work, and Grant Book from the Institution of Gas Engineers talking about how we've done it before and some of the content that he was talking to at the GasNZ forum last year. So that was really interesting. Got some good questions across the panel discussion in that round. Then we had a kind of a parallel to that from a policy perspective. What is needed to unlock the availability of biomethane? That was pretty interesting. We had Andy Knight, who's the head of the gas industry company, and he decided to make his interactive. He got everyone in the audience to stand up and asked people to sit down if they didn't think that in New Zealand we should be adopting either a voluntary or a mandatory mandate to incorporate biomethane into the gas network. I think maybe one or two people did sit down to say they didn't think we should. He then asked the same question of only the gas retailers and network operators, making very clear he only wanted their personal opinion, not their corporate opinions. And again, it was virtually unanimous that people thought some kind of a mandate ought to be put in place in order to accelerate the sector. So his challenge coming out of that was for the industry companies to go back to their senior executives in their boardrooms and say, well, this is the opportunity we have. And he made clear that the gas industry company thought they were able, and they're certainly willing, if industry asked for a mandate, to put that in place. So that was really interesting. Chris Burgess from NZTE, Invest NZ, also was part of that session. And if I can just move on here, if it works. He noted that there were quite a few things that would be useful in terms of policy settings to support investment. He noted that yes, setting a clear target was a useful thing to do, and there are also targets in place, but making sure those are broadly adopted. Encouraging government to take a systems view, recognising the very siloed nature of the beneficiaries who benefit from the circular economy benefits of anaerobic digestion, focusing on feedstock availability because that is the resource that enables the energy generation, making sure that developers understand and take advantage of the funding that is available, which primarily is the Waste Minimisation Fund and through Kanua, the Regional Infrastructure Fund. He confirmed that those could both be used together. And then encouraging and supporting councils to understand the system benefits of adopting anaerobic digestion, and really ensuring that the government is behind it with cross-government policy support. So those I think resonated with most of the audience. We then finished off the event with a wrap-up panel, a call to action panel with Charlotte Morton from the World Biogas Association, Ben Gerritsen, Andy Knight, and Eleanor Grant. And that was really positive. Charlotte noted that this had been one of the most positive, constructive, and useful conferences she'd attended on the subject in the last 15 years. And I think that was a reflection of the really good conversations that were taking place, especially not just in the discussion sessions, but also in the breaks. It was quite hard to get people to move back in from the lunch breaks because there was some really good networking and conversations going on about potential new projects. She encouraged New Zealand to leapfrog above past some of the challenges that other countries had faced, and was supportive of the work that we are doing on the Gas Roadmap project, and encouraged us to take advantage of the World Biogas Association's work in developing their global regulatory framework, which is exactly what Chase is doing. She really encouraged us and the New Zealand government to adopt the position that organic waste should not go to landfill, and that anaerobic digestion should be used as the preferred waste management tool. I think those are the key points from the program. Chase, do you want to give your perspectives on what some of the key takeouts were and the key findings from the discussion there?
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. That'd be great. I hope not to repeat too many that you've already put out there. But
sorry if I stepped on your toes there.
No, that's great. I think the more times you can say it, probably the better. So, like Jeffrey was just touching on, there was really strong support for organic waste separation. Probably in part because we were quite close, and then we moved away. But I think one of the themes that emerged that was quite interesting is that one of the highest values of curbside organics is actually enabling long-term contracts, and that being due to the fact that it's attached to council. I think another theme that many of you working in the space will be quite familiar with is that biogas is it's a solution to a waste problem for many, if not most, and it's if you want to achieve the energy benefits, you have to make sure to address the other problems that you're trying to solve as well. I think there was quite a bit of discussion on pricing, and pricing being the way that value is recognized, and a good understanding that if you get the pricing right, the sector will grow. So then there was also, of course, policy discussion. So policy is primarily included in the mix to drive certainty. And that's very much what we're hearing from industry, which is just need to de-risk business case a little bit. And then I think there's also just kind of from looking across global market development, there's a good understanding that policy drives both speed and direction, right? So biogas markets can develop the various co-products as they see fit, but oftentimes it's driven by goals for national benefit. So, and then I think there was also a call for potential value in enabling public-private partnerships. Haven't had a lot of time to dive into that one, but I did hear it a few times. So that kind of led to, starting to put together a few to touch on a few of the barriers and some potential solutions. So the most clear statement that you hear when you're operating in this space is often challenges in establishing feedstock certainty. And it's just that there is genuine difficulty in aggregation of feedstock and establishing long-term contracts, and it just increases the risk of the business case. And a potential solution to that is what was presented many times, right? Banning organics to landfill. It does kind of put council in the driver's seat in terms of some sort of anchoring feedstock supply. I think the second barrier that I heard, this is kind of a mixture of what I heard through discussion. Like Jeffrey said, there was quite a bit of useful discussion in the at morning tea and at lunch. So it's unclear market signals for meaningful renewable gas volumes. It's clear to everyone that the gas supply is diminishing, but lack of demand for larger volumes of biomethane reduces certainty again. So that's why discussion on a mandate is pretty important at an event like this. There's also the all of government procurement avenue as well. That both of those could quite easily signal demand certainty at scale. Otherwise, I think another common refrain is difficulty to achieve cost parity with fossil gas. There are a lot of reasons for that, but I think the simplest way to put it is that that biogas currently has the many benefits that are associated with it are externalized. Versus some costs that are externalized for traditional gas. So one potential solution for that is to stimulate the development of supply via some supply side instruments, be they financial or market based, both on the table as tools that have been tested elsewhere and should certainly be under consideration for our policy mix. Let's see. I think something I heard during the break from quite a few different sources were competing waste technologies often externalize costs to demonstrate a more compelling ROI, and that usually people talking about incineration because it tends to employ, I guess, what I would probably describe as inferior waste outcomes to offer a shorter payback and invite a kind of an uneven comparison for councils or those who are looking to deal with waste. And then the last two, I think Jeffrey touched on quite a bit. So the councils, and I spoke to quite a few myself, are often uncertain about how to progress these type of projects. You can see the interest, but it's often quite difficult to span those three sectors of waste, energy, and nutrients, and sometimes there's a lack of skill, or it can be just capacity itself, and that makes it difficult to consider AD in general. So I think, like Jeffrey said, there is a role. There's definitely a potential solution of fostering collaboration between councils, establishment of potential working groups. And trying to share these learnings and make sure that the few champions that we have today can potentially help create some new ones. And then I guess lastly, we did hear quite a bit about also from councils primarily, which is a lack of understanding around AD in practice, as well as the benefits. So if you go to build a plant, you're going to hear pretty quickly from everyone that wants their misunderstandings around the process often manifest as complaints at the consultation and consenting stages, and so there's room definitely for improving the understanding there through either industry or sector group educational campaign. And there are more, but those were the key ones I wanted to pass along, and to let everyone know that we're also looking at the solutions for those and what we want to put forward in terms of what's doable to grow this sector.
That's great. Thanks very much, Chase. Look, I think there was a lot. it was very successful in our goal of bringing together the disparate parties and kind of raising the base level of understanding and really understanding what are the challenges that different parts of the solution are facing. So it's given us a lot of information that will feed into the development of our gas roadmap over the next couple of months, and connections to people who we want to be engaged in that process as well. I see we've got one question that's coming from someone about what is the potential size for biogas production in New Zealand. There's been a lot of studies done, and probably the easiest one to refer to is the Bluenomere report, which harked back to the Wood-Becker work that had been done. It essentially shows that there's about 23 and a half, they said, petajoules of biogas either currently being produced or that could be produced in New Zealand, and that's from kind of existing waste sources, whether that's wastewater treatment plants, landfill, or other organic waste streams that could be used. That wasn't including any amount for crops that could be produced as energy crops or forestry waste and so on. So and similarly, the Bioenergy Association has come out with, I think, a 5, 12, 20 as kind of the stages to go in terms of biogas production. So I think those are realistic numbers. That's not taking into account any improvements in technology, and certainly we had one technology producer who was presenting there about ways to increase the efficiency of processes. So I think that in the order of 20 petajoules is realistic, and to put that in context, that is almost 3 times, say 2.5 times the amount of gas that is used by residential consumers, of natural gas that's used by residential consumers at the moment, or about in the order of, depending on the year, 15 to 20% of the natural gas that's being used in New Zealand at the moment. So it's a significant amount. And then when you add on to that the fact that you're also reducing emissions by not having that product decompose and release its emissions, and you're getting the full value of nutrients from it, from the biomethane, it ought to be quite attractive. But the challenge is building that business case in New Zealand without the kind of supports that exist in some countries overseas. So are there any other questions from people who want to raise their hand or stick a question in? I'm seeing it says new post. What does that mean? There we go. There are. Let me go from here. Tim Lepper, were there any levers/support committed to help get the next project across the line? No would have to be the answer, but I think the minister's statement that he has directed MB and MFE to explore options to divert organic waste to energy production, I think is significant. In a discussion that I had with him about 3 or 4 months ago, he noted that different parts of government weren't necessarily well connected, and I took that to be a reference to the fact that the canning of the food waste collection hadn't necessarily had an energy lens passed over it. So I think there is scope there. The minister is certainly much more aware of the potential for biogas, and I am hopeful that we will be able to get something along. There are some relatively low-cost things that the government could do to support. For example, the government purchases about 2.5 petajoules of natural gas for schools, hospitals, and other kind of government sector uses. They could fairly easily commit to purchasing some of that as renewable gas, and that would be an underpinning of demand. So there are some levers that I think we are discussing with the government, and it'll be nice if we can get some of those. David asks, in Australia, effluent to biogas at small piggeries and farms was used for gas-fired electricity generators. Is this part of the New Zealand mix? I think you should probably talk to Tim about that, because he probably knows. The New Zealand, most of the New Zealand effluent available is obviously dairy, and it's relatively distributed and relatively low cost. I think certainly on-farm solutions are quite potentially quite valuable in terms of providing a local small-scale solution. There is, of course, the potential for smaller scale, so hub solutions in an agricultural setting where you might have producers within a 10 or 20 kilometre radius, or producing to a smaller plant, which might then also be able to inject into the grid. So now that we have the Reparoa plant up and running, this came up several times at the meeting, having a plant that people can go and touch and see and look at and understand makes all the difference to people's belief in the potential. So the fact that we now have one plant at Reparoa that anyone within reason can go and see and understand how it works and ask questions, we're hopeful will open the floodgates. But at the smaller stage, yes, there are farms. Fonterra was there. They are very keen in using more biomethane and biogas. So I'm hopeful it will grow. Do we have any more? Oh, we do. What's the cost of producing biogas compared to natural gas? Chase, do you want to answer that one?
Yes, I guess honestly, I've heard some numbers floating around, but we don't really have a basis for that like I've seen in Europe. Like if you look in Europe, there's a coordinated approach of aggregating that background data and actually establishing these production costs. I think I would say it's fair to say we're not at parity, but there is potential to produce gas at prices that people would pay for.
And I think that was part of that stack that was in that chart that I showed. One of the things to be economical, what we need to do is not just get value for the gas, it's get value for the biofertilizer, for the bio CO2, for the heat, and so on. We need to develop understanding and markets that those things exist and that they have a value. Once we can get green gas certificates effectively, which Brave Trace has effectively now got in place, so people can say, I would like to buy biomethane as they buy their natural gas, then that ought to increase the value of the gas as well and provide another source of revenue. So we are pretty much at our end of time, end of our lunch break. Thanks very much for attending. Hope you've enjoyed it. Our next Lunch and Learn webinar is going to be in just a few weeks on Wednesday, the 13th of August. This is going to be about industrial switching from natural gas to LPG. What's involved? How feasible is it? Albert de Geest, ex-CEO of Liquigas, and Chris Dolman from Algas will be talking about what's involved, how much interest is there, how feasible is it. So if you're on the email invite list for this webinar, you should get an invite to that. If you didn't get an invite for this webinar, email us at info@gasnz.org.nz. And we'll add you on, and otherwise hope to see you at our next webinar. Thanks very much. Enjoy the rest of your week.